I made a phone call, and that's when I texted you. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now something came up.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. All right, I got you, Dr. Vitale. Yep.
Okay. There we go.
Good. Hey guys, you guys have joined us on a little bit early. We're going to run a little bit of a test, and then I'm going to log off, and then I'm going to come on. Okay.
All right, hold on. Okay, let's see if this works.
So you guys that are on that other side, what we're testing is to make sure that when he does a screen share, that you guys see that screen, okay? So let me know if you guys see this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. You good, Mr. Flugel? You see that?
Okay, I stopped it. I'm going to restart it again. Hold on.
All right. Seems to be working pretty good.
Okay.
Very good. All right, we'll just leave that one playing there, and so once the 2 o'clock hour hits, I'll wait about 2 minutes to let everybody make sure that they're logged in properly, and then we will get started. Okay, everybody? We'll have a few folks right at 2 o'clock, so we still have a few minutes there. And Mr. Burnett, good to see you.
Great to see you, sir. It's really the magic of the modern technology of the internet, you know, to be able to connect.
It's amazing. You know, I tell you, it's Facebook has been amazing because you know, you literally can keep up with all of your family and all of your friends on a daily basis, and you know, it's been a good thing. But you know, some of the days of just calling somebody up on the phone are over. It's been a good thing, part of it, because I can communicate just at the touch of my fingers and talk to people daily. It's been wonderful.
Great,
but I'm a guy, I like the face-to-face, though.
Yeah.
Got some good, Grandmaster Wadley, got some good news today for Clinton County where Millennia is. And it sounds like, looks like we're going to be able to open up at 50% as of May 1st.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Wow, that's great.
Governor Reynolds is doing it by county.
Really?
So we're one of those counties that we can start opening up.
Wow, congratulations. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are the first ones that I've heard.
So, and Mrs. Kiggins and myself, we're making plans on our reopening, and thanks for all the good ideas last week. So,
Well, we got a minute. You guys excuse me 1 second. I'm going to go and get my hot tea and bring it in here so I can sip it while we're doing that. So,
I'll drink to that, sir.
hey, good job, guys. Hey, good job. Pardon me 1 second.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Doing very well, sir.
Good, good, good. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mr. Dan Ligon. I am the head instructor with Grandmaster Brumley at Taekwondo University in Olive Branch, Mississippi. So
Okay.
just to let you know who I am.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, and sir, I'm Mr. Flugel from DeWitt Millennium Martial Arts. My instructor is Master Nixon.
Okay. Spoke to Master Nixon yesterday. We did a test run. All right. I'm going to start the share again. I just want to.
All right, Jason.
Back up again.
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
All right.
Jay Shamia, welcome. I don't see your video though, sir.
Okay. So while we're waiting to start, we'll probably say this again, but my goal, the whole purpose is to share some basic information with you guys and open it up to as many questions as possible. So don't be afraid to ask any questions related to, Taekwondo's history. I'm not afraid to, address anything. And I won't be picking the questions. Grandmaster Wadley will be doing that because I don't want anybody to think that I'm shying away from anything. Plus, I want to focus solely on addressing any concerns or issues that you guys have. So I think we were talking about, Grandmaster Wadley's back. I'll let him follow through on that. We had talked about opening up a chat thing and people typing questions in a chat box to him. But I'll let him explain that because he'll be taking care of those mechanics.
Yes, sir. So it is 1:58 my time. We'll wait just a couple minutes, everybody.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Hey, Grandmaster Wales, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm gonna, for right now, not use the audio because I may have to, and I'm gonna put myself on mute so I can listen because I'm still at work.
Yes, sir. Hello, Grandmaster Brumley.
How are you, sir?
Wonderful, sir. I see Grandmaster Bias too.
Hey, Bo.
And Master Arsal. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Same here, Grandmaster. Thank you, Mr. Pure. Hello, Grandmaster Vitale.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are.
Italy, sir, 9 p.m.
Okay, good.
Hello, sir. How are you, everybody? How are you, sir?
Good, good. Welcome.
Hello, sir. How you doing?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good to see you guys. Okay, we got about 1 more minute, guys. We'll get started. And
Grandmaster Vitale, hi. This is Terry Brumley. How are you, sir?
Good, good. My pleasure. I'm doing well, thank you.
It's thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, it's not a problem. We'll do it anytime. It's really my pleasure. Yeah.
Hey, Grandmaster Vitale, this is Rick Balkin. It's good to see you again.
Yes, Doctor. How are you? I just seen you. Yep. Welcome.
Dr. Balkin.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Grandmaster Vitale.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Jason Wadley. Hello, sir.
Hello, Grandmaster Bias. Hello, from Florida.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me in this.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. Hello, Master Ware.
Hello, sir. How are you? Hello, gentlemen.
Wonderful. All right. It is now 2 o'clock. I'll wait 1 more minute. Now, kind of go over everything with everybody, how we're going to play this out and introduce our guest. So one thing, if everybody could mute yourselves, if you don't mind, everybody push mute on your end. And so what we're going to do is, if you have a small question, you guys can type it in that chat box, and I'll bring it up to Dr. Vitale. But you guys are welcome also to unmute yourself. You can introduce yourself, where you're from, ask your question, and then go back to mute again. So if I did it, I'd say, hey guys, I'm Jason Wadley, I'm from Texas, and my question is, and I mute myself. That way everybody can hear, because if you have not used Zoom before, the screen will pop over to whatever noise that it hears. So to keep it focused just on Grandmaster.
Oh, you froze up.
Vitale.
You're freezing up, sir. Can anybody else hear him? Oh, there we go. Oh. We lost him, right?
Yeah, he might be connected in
Now.
Yeah.
again. Oh,
Yes.
But he's good?
Now it's good.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, Grandmaster Vitale is an ITF 9th Dan, and he is the only non-Korean to receive a doctorate from North Korea, and it's amazing. Everybody, please welcome Dr. Grandmaster George Vitale. Sir, would you introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Certainly. Okay. Well, you guys know I'm from New York City, the current epicenter of this COVID-19 coronavirus catastrophe. So somebody said before, thank goodness for Zoom, so we can get together like this. Modern technology is phenomenal, and I'm hoping that modern technology in the science and medical field will eventually figure this out, and we'll be able to get some more normalcy back in our lives. So it really is my great pleasure to be able to share with you guys. It's my sincere honor, really. Over the years, many gracious people have taken a lot of their time to share with me. So I feel obligated to share what they have given me. I didn't create any of these things. I didn't manufacture anything. I simply dug them up in my research. So these are the things that my great interest in the history of Taekwondo has led me to come to understand. So as people were very gracious sharing these things with me, I'd like to be able to share them with you to inform more and to elicit feedback. Eliciting feedback for me is very, very important, because we must continue to correct and fine tune the history of Taekwondo, because it really is far from complete. I don't want anybody to start this presentation off or this sharing off by thinking that I believe I know everything and I'm gonna correct you guys and gals, because that is not the case at all. I'm merely here to share and hopefully to learn, because the more that we get people to contribute actual documentation, we build a more thorough and more complete history of Taekwondo. That's important for many reasons. And first and foremost, there's a lot of great people that worked very hard to give us what we have today. We wouldn't be here in this environment sharing if it wasn't for the connection that we have through Taekwondo. So when somebody holds a door for me, or gets me something to eat, treats me to something, I'm forever grateful. And one of the ways we pay back is by, moving that forward and maybe holding the door for the next person that comes through, you know, giving your seat to them. And we know this as Taekwondo instructors. So some of the major points I'd like to start off with is that Taekwondo is not 2,000 years old. It really is not. And if we can leave this meeting today and understand that, that'll be a really great start. Then we also have to understand the history of Taekwondo is highly controversial. It is full of controversy and a lot of confusion for a lot of reasons. And foremost among them reasons are the history was purposely manipulated by people for a myriad of reasons. And we can go into some of those reasons later on, but it has been manipulated and we've been purposely confused for partisan reasons between leaders that were bickering among themselves, for political organizational infighting and cross-fighting for dominance in the Taekwondo realm, and basically for pure nationalist reasons of Korean nationalism. We know they suffered terribly under a brutal occupation for half a century. When they got free, they tried to throw off the shackles of the Empire of Japan, and they also worked very hard to reinvigorate and to reinstill their culture and teach their history again. So all of this are reasons why it was confused on purpose. And when we understand why they reported history as they did, we will really be able to understand more of what actually went on and filter through all that nonsense and get down to the actual factual occurrences along that historical timeline. So, if, you know, finally, I'd like to say, if I can motivate you to learn more, to do more digging, that's great. And it would be very beneficial to me if I could get you to share with us and contribute, because you might have come across something in your Taekwondo journey that you could share with the greater public. So with that said, I'd like to jump into the history of Taekwondo. And where's my screen going here? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to just give a very brief overview. I'm going to race through things. Hold your questions off. I might have a question or two for you as we go along. But again, Taekwondo is not 2,000 years old. And here's the other key point. There is more than one Taekwondo. So therefore, simple common sense has to tell us that there's going to be more than one path of how that particular style or system of Taekwondo developed. So a lot of times you can avoid arguing when we understand. My mother and father gave birth to 4 people, so I have 3 siblings that we have the same mother and father in common. So we have the same roots. And every single person that has a sibling, whether it's one of the sibling, 2, 3, 4, or more, they all come from the same parents. So by definition, their roots are the same. But each person grew and developed in individual ways. They might have went to different schools, pursued different educational tracks, had different career choices, had children of their own or didn't, have 1 child, 2 child. They could have moved to different places. So we understand the history of the Vitale family, and then we understand how my siblings had that common starting point and branched out. So one thing we know is Korea being a wholly indigenous, intact people for about 5,000 years. Remember, they're on a peninsula, surrounded on 3 sides by water, and the other side broken apart by China and Russia by rivers and very high mountainous ranges. So they have a long, glorious past. There's no question about that. And of course, every single place on earth had indigenous martial arts, some way to be able to defend themselves in a systemized manner. That's irrefutable. And we don't have to waste any time debating that, because that's, again, just common sense. So with that, let's examine the connection of the Korea's past to Taekwondo. Let's look at what happened in the past and how it's connected to Taekwondo. Okay, here we go. Uh-oh, blank screen, what happened? Mistake, is it? Wait. Oh, no, it's not a blank screen. I put a blank screen up on purpose. There is zero, none, no connection whatsoever from Korean martial arts in the past to Taekwondo today. So just keep that in mind. But again, that's not to denigrate the fact that Korea had indigenous fighting systems in the past. There's no question about that. So when we focus on that proud history of the past, it only confuses what is the actual history of Taekwondo. And I believe, as I said earlier, that was certainly part of the goal. So continuing to feed into this myth only hurts efforts to correct the historical record. So understand, yes, they had that in the past, and that there's really no direct connection to what Taekwondo is today. So then where does Taekwondo come from? Now I'm going to ask a question. There's 5 images here, 3 images on the top, 2 on the bottom. Does anybody know what the image in the middle on the top is? If you do, just shout it out. Nobody knows? Okay. All right. So where does Taekwondo come from? So you see the image of the Korean Peninsula, you see 2 old Korean flags, and then you see the Korean emblem on some guy's heart. So I try to say that Taekwondo comes from Korea. It comes from the heart of the Korean people. And that flag in the middle on the top, in the center, the flag that nobody identified, that's the Republic of Korea's army flag. That's where Taekwondo first came from. So Taekwondo does not come from the 5 original kwans, at least not directly. Now we have to understand what these 5 kwans were. They were Korean karate kwans. And as you can see, it's karate mostly from Japanese sources with some minor Chinese martial arts influence. There were terms they used to describe it, such as Kangsudo and Tangsudo, Wasudo, Kwanbuk. Each of them, in their own ways, like you guys and gals do in your individual schools and studios, you add to what you teach your own personality and the types of things that you want to emphasize and focus. So although we all do Taekwondo, we all do it a little bit different. So these Korean karate kwans were, for the most part, doing basic rudimentary karate. They even utilized the kata from karate. So even though they injected their own personal emphasis and individuality, it still, when you scratched off that surface and dug down, it was basic rudimentary karate. So if Taekwondo is not 2,000 years old, and it's not, where did it come from? And here's the listing of the first 5 kwans. I use names here to distinguish what they were called when they first opened in 1944 to 1947. And I'm going to restate, as you see in the bottom, Taekwondo did not come directly from these 5 original kwans. This screen here, and I'm going to ask anybody here if you can name any of these people, starting with everybody knows General Choi in the military uniform on the bottom. Yeah. So above him, does anybody know who that is?
Isn't that Sergeant Major Pak?
Nope. That's Grandmaster No Benjik. He's one of the only 5 original Kwan founders that I actually met. That's No Benjik. Next to him, Lee Won-guk.
Yeah, from the Chundu Kwan, right?
That's correct. Next to him is Yoon Byung-in. Next to him, Chang Sung-sup. He's Jiro Kwan and Changmu Kwan. Those 2 disappeared during the Korean War. And we did find out later on what happened to one of them with Chung Sung-sup. We still don't know what happened. Going down underneath him in the traditional Korean Hanbok is Mudokwan founder Wang Ki. My roots are the Mudokwan. My teacher was from the Mudokwan, even though he was an ITF master. The gentleman with the glasses is Dr. Yoon Kyung Byung. He was the 2nd Kwangjin Nim of the Jido Kwan. He probably was the most senior of all these founders. Some records indicate he actually had a 7th degree in karate, and he was very, very senior. And then, of course, the one in the military uniform is General Choi. So, as you see here, the 5 original Kwans did a Korean, slightly influenced form of karate. That training, as I said, was basically rudimentary beginner karate. So if we want to consider the 5 Kwan founders as founders of Taekwondo, we really have to be honest, take a step back into time and go to Japan and credit Funakoshi Sensei and other Japanese instructors as Taekwondo founders, because these 5 gentlemen were basically teaching karate in Korea. So the first original Taekwondo was the Korean martial art developed initially in the Republic of Korean Army. That's the South Korean Army. And it became known as military Taekwondo. So when we look back at those 7 people, only General Choi and Grandmaster No Bun-jik, who were the first, there were 2 of the first generation leaders, there were 7 altogether, that played any direct role in Taekwondo's development. And of course, they were assisted by their students, what we call the second generation leaders, and the juniors and so that followed them. So we also now have to label which Taekwondo we're talking about. There are 3 basic ways that I break down Taekwondo. One is what General Choi did. He started doing on a Jeju Island. It became military Taekwondo because it began in the Korean Army, and then eventually moved to the civilian side, and we know it today as ITF Taekwondo. Then there are the 5 Kwans that were doing, and General Choi, of course, was doing Korean karate as well in the beginning, and that's what the 5 Kwans were doing. But then the second generation leaders consolidated around new, unique set of sports sparring rules, and they called it Taekwondo, which we call civilian Taekwondo, which became WTF or Kuki or Olympic sport Taekwondo. And then the third category is independent Taekwondo. And independent Taekwondo is a wide umbrella catch-all term, and it can encompass so many different types of Taekwondo. So we don't have time to go into all of them, but just know that they also would have their own path of development. So I would sum up by saying, you know, obviously it comes from Korea. It was created by Koreans in Korea who learned martial arts abroad, mostly from Japan or Japanese sources. Some of them had Chinese martial art influence, and or the second generation learned from Koreans in Korea, from those gentlemen that learned outside of Korea during the occupation. So eventually a divide happened. So if we look in 1959, the first Korean Taekwondo Association was formed. There was some short-lived partial unity. In 1961, the Korean Taekwondo Association was formed. This is when the unity really begins. In 1965, General Choi changed the name back to Taekwondo. In 1966, he formed the ITF in South Korea. 1971, a very, very important figure, pivotally important. His achievements and contributions cannot be understated. I call him the father. He becomes the 6th KTA president. General Choi exiles himself to Canada at the height of the Park Chung-hee dictatorship's brutality. And that year, later on that year, the Kukiwon opened up as the Korean Taekwondo Association's General Gymnasium. In '73, the WTF was formed at the conclusion of the first World Taekwondo Championships. Those championships were actually hosted by the KTA, and they were held in the Kukiwon. And after the championships ended, they formed the WTF. The following year, the ITF held their first World Championships in Montreal, Canada. In 1978, the Kwans were retired. They were numbered and officially rolled into the Kukiwon, and that's when the unity was finally realized. And then you see 2 years later, General Choi commits what is considered by many an unforgivable sin, a really treasonous act in the eyes of some, when he took Taekwondo and introduced it to North Korea. And so at that point, the Taekwondo divide was cemented, and it pretty much has been that way for the longest time. So concluding my introductory remarks, and we'll open up for questions. Taekwondo is not 2,000 years old. It was named by General Choi in the military, and his style of Taekwondo centered around Korean Taekwondo patterns that he and his soldiers developed. About 10 years later, he convinced the civilians, the vote was by a single vote margin, to adopt his Taekwondo name and drop the Taekwondo label that they had preferred. But unfortunately, he could not get them to adopt his system. They could not come to any kind of an agreement on how to move forward together cohesively. So the divide started to widen. And the political climate of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s, 80s really no longer exists. Things started changing in the 90s. And I can tell you in 2020, after bringing the North Korean team to the Winter Olympics in South Korea, the political climate is completely changed. The way they look at General Choi and openly talk about more of the factual occurrences along the Taekwondo historical timeline is very, very different. So the more we cooperate, the more Taekwondo will benefit. And the growth of Taekwondo really is in our hands. And I think from knowing some of the people that logged on, they're capable hands, and their hands made stronger when we come together and cooperate instead of bad-mouthing, beating each other up, or thinking, you know, I'm better than you, or what I do is superior to what you do, or all that nonsense that has gone on for far too long. So that really concludes my opening overview. And I just really want to open it up to whatever questions you have. So if you type them out or funnel them through Grandmaster Wadley, I would love to answer in any way that I can.
Yes, sir. So everybody, again, remember, if you have a question, and that was a very brief overview. And so I know you guys have some questions. So what you do is unmute yourself, introduce yourself, where you're from, ask your question, and then go back to mute again. So that way Dr. Vitale can answer that properly. So anybody like to have a question, you can either type it in the message bar or you can ask him directly.
Hi there, I'm Fred Green from Pro Black Belt Academy in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's very nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you, yes.
I've got a weird question. I've tried to Google this and check this out many a times, and it might just be something it's nothing. But I notice in all the patterns we do, the first technique starts with the left hand. And I notice that there's a lot of times that you do 3 techniques of the same technique in a row. So I didn't know if that was something to do with some kind of Korean history or if that's just a coincidence.
Certainly, thanks for the question. It's an excellent one, and I'll state right up front, whenever I don't know the answer to something, I won't try to do any kind of fancy dancing. There are some people that have looked into these types of coincidences or sequences in the patterns that, you know, might be a little bit, would definitely be much more qualified for me to answer it. But my answer in short is, from my understanding, there was no stated reason why any of that happened. I would add that General Choi, as far as the ITF toll go, he had an idea of who he wanted this pattern to be named after, and that guided him with how he put the moves together. And I know that from speaking with several people, but in particular, Grandmaster Choi Chang-kyun, who's in Vancouver, British Columbia now. He was one of the pioneers that went to Malaysia. He was in an area in Korea where the Army Recruit Training Center was, and he was sent to work under General Choi by General Woo Jung-lim. And he had Gaebek already worked out on paper with that vertical line to show his strict military discipline. And it was quite instructive to know that this military base where the Army training Army Recruit Training Center was also the location where General Gabe Beck lived when he was alive. So that's what gave him the motivation. When I visited that area with colleagues of mine, Dr. Zibby Crook he's from Poland originally, but now living in South Korea, I couldn't help but notice one of the main roads was Gabeck Row. So that's how General Choi had these things in mind. I don't believe he ever articulated how he decided on the actual sequence of the moves. So that's really all I can say about that. And sorry for going off on a tangent, but I thought I'd squeeze it in there. So, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Hi, Sandra Swartwood from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, American Black Belt Academy. I find that very interesting because a lot of people are told a lot of different things about why they start to the left. And I was always told because most people are right-handed, and when you're in a fighting stance, when they attack with the right hand, that you're blocking with your left hand. That's what I was told, and I'm sure a lot of people have been told other things too. But my question has to do more with Muda Kwan. 30, more like 30 some years ago, I had a correspondence with Juan Key on his take of why he did not go at the KTA at the time. So what is your research? I mean, because that was his side of the story. So what have you found out about why Tung Soo Do split off? And that's my martial art is Muda Kwan, so I'm very interested in that. And thank you for your response, and wonderful to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Yes. Okay, that's a great question. And of course, we do have that in common because my roots also come from the Muda Kwan. And there's a great book that the Muda Kwan put out. I think it was in the 50th anniversary. I have it on my shelf. Actually, I'll just grab it right now. It's right here. Here it is. Oh, I'm a poster guy. Yeah. So this is a really great. I guess I'll just take them off. This is a really great aid when it comes to the Muda Kwan, and it has a lot of really great basic information in there. So, and while I'm doing that, one of the great aids also, The Killing Art, Alex Gillis, investigative journalist. He's got 2 editions. And Dr. Udo Moining, who he's from Germany, lives in South Korea now, has a PhD from South Korea. This is an excellent book. It's the greatest academic book on the history of Taekwondo. And of course, you want to get something. This here, Taekwondo History by Dr. Dr. Hee-Young Kim. This is 900 pages of raw data. I can't recommend these books more. And then of course, this is hard to get. I think you have to get it from the Kukiwon. It's in English and Korean. This is the English version. This account, when you put all these things together, you really get a lot of the pieces. So here's Alex Gillis's book. You can see all the Post-it notes I have, tabbed there. But the other one would be The Modern History of Taekwondo, and that came out in 1999. It's available as a free download on the internet, and I'll just show you the front cover. Come on, where we go? Sorry about that. There we are. So look at all that for nothing, and you can hardly see it. Well, it's The Modern History of Taekwondo, and oh, there we go. And all of these sources that I put up, all of these sources, none of them are ITF books, because basically there's been 2 versions of Taekwondo. General Choi's version of what he did, and what the WTF Kukiwon KTA put out, and Taekwondo is 2,000 years old. So those are good starting places, of course, to listen to what your leaders say. But the books that I showed you here are accounts of these people of what actually happened and what went on. So to getting back to this really good question, Grandmaster Wang Ki, in my opinion, is probably the most talented and influential martial artist in all of Korea's history, along with General Choi. Nobody wrote books like he did. Of course, General Choi did. Nobody had the kind of global following that he did personally. Of course, General Choi did. And the impact he had was tremendous. So Wang Ki, when I put that image up of those 7 first generation people, the first generation instructors that were around, Dr. Yoon, Grandmaster Wang Ki, General Chae Hung Hee, and the Grandmaster No Bin Jik. Those 4 were still around, and they became involved in the unification efforts. Grandmaster Wang Ki and General Choi did not get along, and they both had very strong personalities. They could not have done what they did. They could not have done what they did on a global scale if they didn't have strong personalities. So Dr. Ball, a psychologist, can tell you about personalities. But, you know, they were driven people, and they really drove far. So they didn't get along because they had competing agendas, so to speak, but they were ostracized by the second generation leaders. And what do I mean by ostracized? So these second generation leaders got it together in 1961. So May 16th, 1961, there was a military coup. They call it the revolution. The military revolution. They overthrew, and General Choi supported the coup and was instrumental in help stabilizing the government during this military coup. When they did the military coup, the dictatorship came out with a military government decree number 6, where it ordered all social organizations, including the martial arts, to consolidate and reorganize and then register with the new government. One of those that was forced to do this was the martial artist. So they did that. And in September 1961, they formed the Korean Taekwondo Association. They came up with this new compromise name. Dr. Yoon from the Jido-kwan suggested it. But they were ostracized because these second generation leaders wanted a focus on sport. They had these new unique rules, unlike the karate stop match points that were around in the day. They had the continuous fighting with judges with score sheets in the 4 corners, and they introduced the element of full contact. And this was from 1961. So the first generation leaders like Dr. Yoon, General Choi, and Grandmaster Wang, they rejected this. And if you notice, Grandmaster Wang Ki and General Choi are the only first generation leaders that are vilified by the second generation, their students. They were vilified. Grandmaster Wang Ki did not run to Canada to escape political persecution like General Choi did in 1972. He stayed and he fought. Now, he fought against the martial artists, and that book will actually show you how he took them to court and prevailed in court. General Choi was not the kind of person to stay and fight, because he was not only fighting with the martial artists, he was fighting with the government. That's what people have to understand. General Choi's problems with South Korea had virtually nothing to do with Taekwondo. The fact that he had problems in Taekwondo was the result or a side effect of the fact that he was an outspoken critic of a brutal dictatorship. I can go into an hour's lecture on Korea and its turbulent growth in the 1960s. But all you have to understand is that it was this opposition that General Choi had. Park Chung-hee suspended the Constitution again, disbanded the assembly again, made himself president for life, and put people in the National Assembly that supported him. This was the year that General Choi fled in secret, telling only his wife, to Canada. So Grandmaster Wang Ki wanted to keep his traditional influence. General Choi wanted to keep his traditional influence. They both wanted to be the head honchos of what they were doing. And rightfully so. That's not that I don't mean that to be a negative thing, and it's not a criticism. That fell in line with what the second generation was trying to do. Sorry, it didn't fall in line. It was absolutely in opposition to what they were doing, because they were not leaders of anything. They were the current directors of their Kwan, and they were the second generation leaders, but they didn't create or found a Kwan. They didn't open up a school or an organization. They were now just martial artists. And what they saw the path forward was through a sport. And this is not a criticism, and I don't want that to be taken negatively either, because look how successful they are. Look at the record time that they got Taekwondo into the Olympics as an official sport. Now, that's amazing, because anybody who knows anything about the Olympic movement and see all these things, the IOC, how it came to be, it's a Western creation. They never had an Asian sport in there until judo came. And then in record time, and the judo founder, Dr. Kano, he tried for the longest time to get judo into the Olympics. Taekwondo did it in record time. So this really long-winded answer, because it's a complex question, yes, there was animosity and strong personality between the two. They had their own visions, but neither one wanted to follow that sports emphasis. So General Choi gets pushed out of Korea. Why? Because in order to solidify, to consolidate his rule nationally, internally on a domestic level in South Korea, Park Chung-hee arrested people, had people killed, they disappeared. Some fled in exile, and some who were very popular, like General Choi was promoted to ambassador and then shipped out of the country to Malaysia, where he was the first ambassador to Malaysia. So he's gone. Park Chung-hee and his inner circle, consisting of the 8th Military Academy class. General Choi, of course, was the first Military Academy class, serial number 44 out of 110. And Park Chung-hee was in the 2nd Military Academy, his junior subordinate officer, who General Choi actually sat on the military tribunal that convicted Park Chung-hee of being a communist traitor and a Japanese sympathizer. It was only General Choi Sr. that helped spare Park Chung-hee's life, and through the Korean War, he was able to rehabilitate his military career. So General Choi was going down his path, was sent to Malaysia. He continued his formulation and his systemization of his style of Taekwondo. Wang Ki stayed back in Korea. He continued his Tangsudo, but now is calling it Subakdo, officially registering that with the government. This way he didn't have to dance or play games with the civilian second generation juniors that were doing the sport focus. So that's how that schism began in the 60s. And that never was reconciled at all. So I have the utmost respect for Grandmaster Wang Ki. What he did was amazing. I don't think, other than General Choi, there's nobody that, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nobody that, Korean martial artists that can boast of accomplishing what he did. People, Masoyama, but of course he did that in Japan with a Japanese name, with a Japanese martial art. So I hope that addresses your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, this is Brian Tosh in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I really appreciated that history. My first experience also was Tong Sudo Mudokwan. I was fortunate enough to go to a clinic in Tulsa, Oklahoma that was led by Grandmaster Wang Ki back in the early 80s. And I remember just some amazing, amazing things. I was a very young child at the time. But I find it very interesting because as we're talking about this, one of the things that has struck me over the years, my original Tong Sudo instructor moved away and the school closed down. And I found my way to Taekwondo, and I've been here ever since. But I've always been struck by the similarities in the patterns, some of the Pyongan patterns in the Tong Sudo Mudokwan curriculum are so similar, particularly if you look at Wanyo and Yogo. Some of the center sections of the pattern are nearly identical. And interestingly, you know, I've become friends with some different karate practitioners, and as I've, you know, taught them, they've come to our school to train with us. They say, wow, these sections of the pattern are so similar to what they do in Shotokan, et cetera. So it's been interesting to kind of see how this history developed and the similarities and how it's, you know, translated into the patterns.
Mm-hmm. Is there a specific question?
No, the question, well, really, I guess, yes, it was.
Okay.
The question was, I'm sorry, I get a little long-winded sometimes.
No, that's okay.
The question was.
You're nothing compared to me.
Thank you, sir. So the question was, really, I was building the background. I almost forgot about my question, but the similarities in the patterns. It's, can you speak to that those similarities in those patterns and how, you know, they just seem so eerily similar. Is that, I'm assuming that can't be coincidence.
No, I agree. It's not coincidental at all. The way I explain it is, General Choi was the first one to make Korean Taekwondo patterns. And he took generic martial art moves, right? A front snap kick is used in every martial art that I know of. There's more than one way to do a front snap kick, and you can have all kinds of different emphasis. In ITF Taekwondo, we have a front snap kick with the knee. We have a front snap kick with the ball of the foot. So, you know, there are ways that you can fine tune it to make it more specific to what you're doing, maybe to give you, you know, some semblance that it's unique. But the bottom line is a punch is a punch, a front snap kick's a front snap kick. So General Choi's training was in Shotokan karate, and it would be natural for him to draw some of these generic martial art moves from the Shotokan karate that he trained in. You have to understand, in 1959, the first book ever on Taekwondo came out. It had 5 of his Korean Taekwondo patterns in it, including the lost or forgotten pattern Unam. And it also had the karate katas in there. His 1965 book, which is an English version and a Korean version, also had the karate katas in there, and it had 12 of his patterns. So there was no question that he did both, and there's no question that he lifted what is obviously whole segments, sequences from these kata. There's no question about it. And I think when he did this in the 50s and, you know, finalized it in the 60s and then added Juche in the early 80s, you can see the progression of how there was more and more kicking and less karate influence if you understand the progression of the ITF toe and how they were created. So there's no question about that. I think, quite honestly, and this is just me thinking, it's how I surmise and put thoughts in my head. I think that in 1950s, General Choi did not know there was going to be an internet. He didn't know there'd be widespread sharing of video and all these kind of things. And people would somehow say, oh my God, look at these moves in Wanyo. They're like, and you can research this. There are some people that have done really great work on drawing those parallels and showing the similarities. I find it interesting, but it's not something that drags me in like the history does, as far as that the timeline about who was doing what, where, and when they were doing it. But you can definitely research that. And then also in my work, I do realize the Kukiwan. I mean, I can tell if somebody wants to know. I won't say it now, but if somebody wants to ask, I will. How the KTA or Kukiwan or WTF patterns came into play. But we know there was 2 forms, sets of forms, the Paugway and then later on the Taeguk. There's even 2 choreo. The original one that was lost and thank God preserved by Grandmaster Kim Soo and Grandmaster Dr. Richard Chun and Master Doug Cook, good friend of mine, and others that have preserved this form. I actually learned that form in my old school before I started training with General Choi. So when I saw it again, I said, wow, that's familiar. And I put 2 and 2 together. So I'm glad that they preserved that, because that's really neat for me. But you also will see the same similarities in the Paogway and the Taeguk. Yes, they do kind of more upright stances in the Taeguk, but this connection is there. And I'm sure if you watch the Japanese do it, you can connect it to the Okinawans, and the Okinawans connect it to the Chinese, and vice versa. You know, because all that was just being going around in Asia at that time. But there's definitely a correlation, and that's why this is important for you to understand. For General Choi, it was all martial arts. Martial arts was martial arts. More importantly, what he was doing was creating martial art movements and putting them in a pattern to reinstill, to reinvigorate, to reintroduce Korean history. They were very popular patterns, and they resonated with people. Still today, they resonate with Korean people in Korea. When I go there, they say, you know, I'm an old guy, look, bald head, open heart surgery, and they look and they say, you still play Taekwondo? And I say, I don't play Taekwondo. I train Taekwondo. Taekwondo, Mudo, martial art. They don't understand that concept, because I'm not meaning to be negative, and I don't want anything that I say to be taken as negative. In Korea, Taekwondo is considered a kiddie sport, and it's falling out of favor because of K-pop and this dancing, whatever. So when I tell them Mudo, they what? And, you know, martial art. And then I say, yes, you know Pumse. And they say, oh, yeah. Oh, I know Pumse. I said, well, the Pumse I do is Chunji Dangun Dosan Wanyo. You have to see the expression on their face. They are amazed that this big mouth New Yorker from this giant country of the United States, so rich and powerful and obnoxious and all the things that people say about us around the world, knows about Korea's proud history. It resonates with people. Again, I have a lot of things to share. Current president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, when he watched the North Koreans that I brought to the Taekwondo Wan perform Dangun To, he said, that's the Taekwondo I did in the army. And if you notice, when North Koreans do a demonstration, they almost always perform Dangun right at the beginning. Why? It's a boring, basic pattern. Nothing exciting about it. What's exciting about it, it is Dangun, their legendary founder, the progenitor of the Korean race. That's why they do that first. It was one of the things General Choi asked them to do. One of the things, that's how his mind worked. So the really long answer to, maybe it's not as a complicated question and it shouldn't be as a complicated answer, but it wasn't really about the moves for General Choi. And the same thing happened on the KTA side. And some say it happened too briefly, and that's why they came up with a second set of patterns. But you know, I can elaborate on that if people want, but thank you for the question.
Grandmaster Vitale, Piotr Bernard from Poland speaking here. If possible, I would like to go back to the decade or slightly over a decade after the Korean Taekwondo Association was created in 1961. And during the time, I mean after the creation of Korean Taekwondo Association and before General Choi's exile, do we know what was the actual ratio between the two big branches of Taekwondo? I mean, General Choi's military Taekwondo and the civilian Taekwondo. Was one of these group dominant in South Korea size-wise? Were they similar? Do we have any data on this? Because this is sometimes also used politically or for propaganda by both sides of this long discussion. Could you please elaborate on this a little bit?
No question. Again, this is a very good question. It's very insightful. And I'm glad I'm getting very specific questions, because we really need to dig down. So in terms of data that we can analyze, that some survey or some study that somebody did, unfortunately doesn't exist. But again, think back to the context of those times. Martial art in the 40s and 50s in Korea was non-existent. It's not like 2020, where every strip mall you go, or in every church, they put in their bulletin, you know, on the weekends or a couple of days during the night during the week, they have instruction of martial arts. Ladies and gentlemen, it didn't exist. It did not exist. That's why it's crazy to say, this is a lie. You probably heard it. During the occupation, Korean martial arts were outlawed. It's a lie. It was outlawed. You know, I was a state trooper 24 years. We have law books where you can look up the law. There is no law that martial arts were outlawed. What was outlawed was large gatherings of males. Why? The colonial oppressors did not want to have opportunities for insurgencies to take root and for these kind of resistance to develop. There was no law outlawing Korean martial arts. There were no Korean martial arts to outlaw. Go back to where martial arts today come from. They come from judo. That's where they come from. From Dr. Kano, who started to put a sport together and teach it to children in the school system. Funakoshi left Okinawa, went to mainland Japan, and did something very similar later on. That's the origination, so to speak, of what we understand as martial arts today. Did martial arts exist before that? Of course they did. Where did they exist? Okay, my father taught me, put your hands up, protect yourself. He would say, put your dukes up, right? He would show me boxing moves. So I'm sure parents did that all the time to protect, to have their children that they love protect themselves, self-defense. And the militaries were in place for self-defense. That's where these things existed. But guess what happened? Gunpowder happened. Hold on, I'm reaching for my gun. It's here. Good thing it's not an emergency. Gunpowder happened. And now you had weapons that did not necessitate a need to get close to do hand-to-hand combat. So I went through the Troopers Academy. We had close quarter combat training, defensive tactics. You know why we had it? Does anybody know why we had it? Any other law enforcement here? I'll tell you why we had it. One reason and one reason only: liability. They needed to be able to teach, to demonstrate to the public, they taught their police officers self-defense. That's why it's done. You don't shoot people in the line of duty. I never had to shoot my gun except at the range. So we have to understand that martial arts in the 40s and 50s was very limited. It was basically with tough guys, because unfortunately, ladies, it wasn't really an activity for gals. When I joined, it wasn't even an activity for children. There was no children classes when I joined. So there is no data to show how prevalent the schools were. We do know from statements from people that the Mudakwon was very popular. Some people say the Mudakwon was very popular because Grandmaster Wang Ki worked for the railroad, and along the points of the railroad line, okay, now it makes sense. It's cute, it's funny. Is it true? You know, we don't know. But we do know that he had a significant following come the 60s, when this splitting is going to happen. We do know it is mandatory for every male to serve in the military. And we do know that it was mandatory to have martial art training in the military. So can we say that General Choi or people following him was the biggest group? Can we even say what they're doing in the military was Odakwon? You know, I don't know how we answer those things. But certainly, Moon Jae-in, the current president of South Korea, said, That's the Taekwondo I did when I was in the military. You can look at the records where in the 70s when General Choi fled to Korea, they actually outlawed his books, and his books were ordered to be destroyed. So you can actually look and see that in the 70s, they changed the curriculum in the military to the WTF Pumse and erased the connection to the ITF. So so that's like the setting of that time period. And we know Wang Ki was very popular. He had a following. We know General Choi was very popular and he had a following. The individual dojangs, they also, as they grew, there was differences in them. The Cheongdakwon split into two. The Changmakwon split into two. One other one split into two. Only 2 of the 5 didn't split. So that's why you have 5 original Kwans. Then you have General Choi and the 6th early Kwan with the Order Kwan. And then you have 3 what they call annex Kwans, which really are not annex Kwans. They split from their parent Kwans because those were both second generation leaders that were peers that couldn't get along, and they went. So there was splitting going on right from day one. So we don't know actual numbers, but we do know when we search the records that when they tried in the middle 60s to bring Mudokwan into the fold, they were going to do a ratio of 4 KTA forms, 4 ITF TO, and 2 Mudokwan forms. But that never worked out. So the Mudokwan split into 2, and he went down his way and was very successful. His students that left him didn't make their own Kwan. They just fully went into the KTA. So we don't have hard data on actual surveys, but that's some of the context. So I hope that helped.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Well, yeah, good one. But we have time for one more question. Somebody like to ask Grandmaster Vitale one more question?
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yes, sir. I do. Go ahead. I have a question, but it looks like somebody else has a question as well, so I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Wait. Okay, if there's one more question, and how about who's logged on the furthest? I heard Italy. Is Italy the furthest? Anybody further away from it? Okay, so let Italy ask. All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You gotta put on your microphone. You're muted.
Yes, sir. Master Fagan, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay.
Hello,
sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello, Grandmaster.
Yes.
Actually, it's not a question. I'm just thankful to hear the history from you. I follow your comment in Facebook, so I'm grateful. I'm here for Grandmaster Wadley. Thank you. That's all, Grandmaster.
No problem. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Master Arso. So
anybody has a question, you reach out for me anytime. I really enjoy sharing what I know. I'll end by saying this. When I traveled the Midwest of the United States, we call it the breadbasket, right? You know, the heartland of America. I was amazed at what farmers do. And being from New York, we just eat. I don't know where it came from. It's good or bad, and I'm going to get some more if I like it. But what farmers do is amazing. They plant these seeds and harvest these crops, and they get them to the market. Can you imagine if a farmer did all that work, harvest the crops, and lock them away in the barn and let them rot? From my perspective as a religious person, that would be a sin. And probably a crime, geez, to, you know, with starvation we have. So really is my pleasure to share with people. I don't want to hold on to anything that was shared with me. And is there anything that I asked, anything that I said today, if you don't agree with, I need to know, because I need to fine tune my understanding. And I can only do that if you guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen, fellow instructors and masters do that. It's very, very important. So I would like to have feedback, because I will do this over and over again. I have no problem. I can do it as often as you want. I purposely just did a brief overview because I wanted more questions, because in-depth questions, you know, and that's why I put the books up. There's a lot of reading you can do, but when I read and I talk to people, it makes my brain think, and I need to fine tune that thinking. So please let me know if there is anything you disagree with, anything you'd like me to address in the future. I never take pass an opportunity to explain something if I can. It really is my pleasure. I don't feel wanted if people don't need me. So ask away.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vitale, this is Mr. Flugel, DeWitt, Iowa, from the breadbasket that you so lovingly talked about. What I'm getting from this is my fourth, fifth generation, my students. Master Nixon is my instructor, his instructor is Grandmaster Wadley, and so forth. So how would you say would be the best way to encourage my students to be the caretakers of Taekwondo history?
Very simple, very simple. When you're doing testing, you must have a written test. If you don't require a written test, people are not going to study this information. They cannot share what they don't know. You need to have a verbal examination at your test. You have to quiz people orally. It has to be part of your class. And in order to do this, you have to speak about it yourself. You have to make it interesting, and you have to assign reading. You have to assign reading. First degree black belt, they have to write a paper on us, for us. They also have to do community service. So the only way we're going to make them carry this on is if we shared it with them. There's no different from your family. I never met my Greek grandparents. They died before I was born. I met my Irish grandparents, and my Irish grandmother lived till I was 20 years old, 21 years old, and I never asked her about Ireland. I learned everything about Ireland from her relatives back in Ireland and from my two best friends who are Irish. So these things is up to us to do. If we don't, and again, if you don't make it part of a written test and a verbal exam, and you don't issue reading assignments, and you don't talk about these things in the class, they won't ever get covered. They won't get absorbed, and they won't get shared.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Grandmaster Vitale.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Grandmaster. I'm Pat Hindawi from West Plano Taekwondo here in Plano, Texas. I won't ask the question now, but for the future, when we're able to listen to you speak again, thank you very much for the history lesson. I would like to ask you your thoughts on where you would like to see the current Taekwondo expand for the future and the direction of which it would go based on the past and the history, because obviously it's quite different now in modern times that we live in, where it's practiced as exercise, as a sport, as local military training, like you were speaking about, the police department. So for the future, and especially since more women are practicing and being introduced to Taekwondo, for the future, where you would like to see it go on a global level and separately on a national level here, because around the world, obviously, it's practiced different. And as an instructor, I'm virtually new to martial arts in the last 11 years. And I became an instructor 4 years ago. I absolutely love it, and what it teaches our students and the values that we were taught as children within our household. So from a woman's standpoint or female standpoint, where you would like to see it go, because we're starting to see the majority of my students are female, young females, and they're under the age of 12. And I have a small school, but I'm starting to see more and more and more. And teaching the history is very, very important, but also making sure we're embracing where we're going to be able to tell them to go with it, the next generation, because they have not and will not experience what generals.
Ms. Ndawi, you missed your question. You kind of went off there just for a little bit.
I got it. I got it all. Yep. I grabbed it all.
Yes, sir. That's a great. That's a great question, and I would love to have Dr. Vitale back again. And so thank all of you guys for joining on. Yes, I think we lost. Are we still there?
I'm here. Yep.
Yes, sir. Hang on. I'm trying to. I lost my recording there. Let's see. Do I still have everybody there? All right. Looks like I lost. Turn to me. There we go. All right, thank you. Lost the meeting. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. I'd like to get that one on the next one, sir. We're out of time for today. And thank you, everybody, for joining on today. That's very important. And Dr. Vitale, thank you so much, sir, for giving us your wisdom. And you know, that little brief, what you're getting there is that was just a little overview, guys, of what he can dive into. And it's hard to give an entire history of Taekwondo because there are so many little parts, and he is the person to ask. And like he said, if you guys would like to reach out to him individually, that's a great invitation to share his knowledge, and we would love to have him back again. And sir, you are amazing, and I love visiting with you all the time about the Taekwondo. And there are others on here as well, some of the other grandmasters resources as well. You guys reach out to your leadership, okay? And stay that student, stay that white belt, okay? So Dr. Vitale, would you like to close?
No, just I think really I said it really all, but I would like to maybe close by saying, Grandmaster Wadley, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and you, sir, are one of the highlights of when I get down to the big state of Texas to visit my family. So
yes, sir.
Visiting with you is like visiting with family. So I very much look forward to you know, the next time we meet in person. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, bye everybody.
I think I have. I'm at the limit with Facebook friends of 5,000. But you can follow me on Facebook. You can ask. I don't do Facebook Messenger, but if you post something on my wall, I'll answer it, no problem. And if it's something that you want to discuss privately, if you put something on my wall and then tell me you messaged me, I'll go into the message inbox and get your contact information. We'll either correspond by email or over the phone. It's not a problem. I'm really here to help in any way I can.
Real quick,
thank you,
could
sir.
you please list the books on the UTA page that he mentioned?
Yes, I will. I sure will. I'll post those.
Thank you.
And Grandmaster Vitale, one person asked if it was okay if you would share the slides with them. Would that be something that I could pass out to everybody?
Yes, no problem.
Okay,
No
sir. I'll talk with you again a little bit after the meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
No, I was
I'll
just
get
going
all
to
that
say,
stuff for all of us.
I can email them to you, and I'll take screenshots, you know, pictures of each of the books. I'll send a link to the Modern History of Taekwondo. It's available for free download in a PDF file. So yes, no problem at all.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Bye, everybody. Be safe out there.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys soon. Taekwondo.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you, Grandmaster Vitale.
Oh, no,
Thank you.
my pleasure. Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you, Grandmaster.
Okay.
Talk to you later,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay, now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Grandmaster Wadley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grandmaster Vitale.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir.
Up your-
Yeah, good night in Italy.
That's
Thank you.
right.
Bye-bye.
I have a question.